Hello and welcome to Anything and Everything, and welcome to Who is the Most Dangerous in Westeros. In this series we're going to be taking characters from the TV shows, analysing them on their personalities, their traits, their strengths and their flaws to determine who is the most dangerous in Westeros. The way this series will work is that each character will be rated based upon specific categories. These categories will include warfare, mental prowess, personal factor, and political power. Each category will have subcategories that will determine the ultimate score of the whole category. The person at the end with the highest score will determine who is the most dangerous in Westeros.
Keep riding, cause we rolling. I've been playing my cards, I'm never folding. Fuck yeah, we young and we owing. We'll take a rest when our days are olden. The birds chirping, the sun shines out of breath, but we never take a time out.
Today's character on this series is gonna be the one and only, the King of the North, Robb Stark. Robb Stark is the eldest son to Eddard Stark and Catelyn Tully. He was born in Riverrun and ultimately grew up in Winterfell alongside Eddard Stark's ward, Theon Greyjoy, and his half-brother, Jon Snow. When Ned Stark accepted Robert Baratheon's offer to become Hand of the King, he moved to King's Landing, where Robb ruled in Eddard Stark's stead and become actively as the Lord Paramount of the North and Lord of Winterfell. Little did Robb Stark know he would soon be raising his banners to march south to rescue his father.
Joffrey puts my father in chains, now he wants his ass kissed. Call the banners. They've all sworn to defend my father, have they not?
They have.
Now we see what the words are worth.
Because he had been imprisoned by King Joffrey through the act of treason. At age 15, Robb Stark declared war on the Iron Throne and marched south to free his father, who was currently being held prisoner in King's Landing. During the war struggle, Robb won every single battle he ever participated in, even capturing Sir Jaime the Kingslayer himself. Robb Stark on numerous occasions outsmarted Tywin Lannister. Next, Joffrey executed Ned Stark, and the whole aim of rescuing Ned had been flung out the window, but Robb carried on to ultimately get justice, and then he was declared King in the North by his own people because he was inspiring, he was a man on a mission, and he was a leader. So then it became a war for justice and ultimately a war so the Northern realms can become independent once again. During the whole war, Robb Stark promised to marry Walder Frey's daughter to make her Queen of the North. However, Robb Stark laid with another and ultimately felt that his duty and honour came first and married another woman. This broke his promise and his word. He was then invited to the wedding of Edmure Tully, his uncle and a Frey girl. This is where Walder Frey gave him bread and salt, so it was under his protection, and this became known as the Red Wedding, where Robb Stark and numerous of people, including family members such as Catelyn Tully, was murdered. The young wolf was no more through the act of treason through Walder Frey, with alliancing himself with Tywin Lannister. Who knows what Robb Stark would have become as he got older, and maybe his point tally in this series would have been a lot higher. Guess we'll never know. Forever young, the young wolf, the king in the north.
Mother. The Lannisters send their regards.
Robb Stark's greatest accomplishments was winning every battle he was ever involved in the Battle of the Five Kings at only the age of 15 and 16. He also inspired a whole nation of Northerners to have faith in him at only the age of 15 is quite remarkable, and being bestowed the ancient title of King in the North. Robb Stark's strengths was being a natural battle tactician and an inspirational leader who led the whole of the North, which is a massive domain and a lot of people to keep under one banner. His weaknesses, however, is a flip side. One of them is honor and duty, which is quite weird me saying that, because if he honored his word and actually married the Frey daughter, he wouldn't have been in the mess and ultimately wouldn't have been killed at the wedding. However, he did lay with another woman and get her pregnant, and he didn't want to father any bastards into the world and decided to marry her instead. That is why one of his weaknesses is honor and duty. His other weakness is his political side of warfare. He only knows the enemy who he is fighting. He needs to be a bit more aware of the enemies around him, who's ultimately Roose Bolton and Walder Frey.
Here's to the young wolf. Oh, forever young.
Now we move on to the rating system. We start here firstly with warfare. We've given him a personal combat of 6.5, commander is 8.5, and variables 8.5. We've given him a 6.5 in personal combat because it is known that Robb Stark weren't no lackey with a sword. However, he weren't amazing. He was just beyond average. His real strengths rely on his commanding. With an 8.5, that's as strong as anyone in Westeros. He was able to hang with the best at only the age of 15. And who knows, if he got older, it could have been even higher. The last subcategory is variables. Now, I've included 8.5 because he had the whole nation of the north following him, simply because they just simply believed in him. And he also has a direwolf to back him up in battle. That ultimately leads to a score of 23.5 out of 30, which is a very, very strong score. Next, we move on to mental prowess. We've given him a 6 for intelligence, 3 for wisdom, and 2 for intrigue. As Robb Stark grew up in a noble house, and especially one like the Starks, he was obviously educated, well educated, and he would obviously know his stuff, even only at the age of 15. So we've given him an intelligence a 6. However, for wisdom, we've given him a 3. How wise can a 15-year-old boy be? Who knows? But ultimately, a lot of his war decisions showed no wisdom at all, including the trust that he bestowed to Roose Bolton, even though he scared him. We've also only given him a 2 for intrigue because he's not that kind of character. He doesn't plot, he doesn't scheme. He's a lot like his father in being Ned. This adds up to a total score of 11 for mental prowess. We all knew this was going to be quite a weak category for Robb Stark, considering that he's only 15 years old.
How many men did you lose?
208. But for every man we lost, the Lannisters
We
lost.
need our men more than Tywin needs his!
Sorry. I didn't know.
You would have. Right here today at this gathering if you had been patient.
We seem to be running short of patience here.
You know who isn't? Tywin Lannister.
Next, we move on to personal factor. We've given a 7 for charisma, a 6 for prestige/respect, and a 2 for playing the game. We've given a 7 for charisma because ultimately he's only 15 years old and he's been communicating with some of the higher lords and keeping control of the Northern Realm. This must not have been just through pure inspirational leader alone. He must have had a good charisma and he would be able to charm people when necessary needed. We've given him a 6 for prestige/respect because he comes from a high noble family, in that being the Stark. He was also bestowed the crown King of the North, so that just brings its own respect in its own right. He was also won all his battles in the Clash of the Five Kings, and this ultimately gives him as much prestige as any because he proved himself in the Battle of Warfare. We've given him a 2 for playing the game. Playing the game is a reference to just playing the game. If you watch Game of Thrones, you would know what I mean. But we've given him a 2 for that because once again, like his intrigue, he wouldn't want to take part in it because of his honour and duty. This adds up to a very commendable score, just at halfway, 15 in personal factor. Next, we move on to the last category, which is political power. We've given him a 7 for status, 7 for armies, and 7 for wealth. We've given him a 7 for status because ultimately he was King of the North, Lord of Winterfell, and at one point Lord Paramount of the North. These titles alone just give him the status. With him winning all the wars that he won as well, with him winning all the battles that he won as well, ultimately pushed his status up even more. We then gave him a 7 for armies because he had the whole of the North backing him and the Riverland. He had 2 kingdoms fighting his cause. That's why we give him a 7 for armies. Maybe we'd say 8 if he didn't lose some of his bannermen, such as the Karstarks, the Freys, and lastly we've given him a 7 for wealth because ultimately he was ruling over the whole of the North, and not as Lord Paramount of the North, so any taxation rules weren't included. He was King of the North. He could set his own rules and he set his own laws. Otherwise it might have been a 6 because we all know the North is not as well off compared to the Southern Kingdoms. And also he never only had the North, he had the Riverlands as well, which is another kingdom that was under his rule. This ultimately gives Robb Stark a total of 21 in political power, which is a very strong score once again. Is Robb Stark the most dangerous in Westeros? His score shows 70.5 out of 120, which is a very, very, very strong score and one to start off this series. At the moment, this means that he is the most dangerous at the moment. Leave in the comments below who you think is going to be the most dangerous after we've done all the characters in Westeros and Essos.
One victory does not make us conquerors. Did we free my father? Did we rescue my sisters from the Queen? Did we free the North from those who want us on our knees? This war is far from over.
If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Share to all Game of Thrones fans because they might want to watch this. And please like if you enjoyed it. And if you want to dislike it, please let me know in the comments below what I need to improve on and why you didn't like it. Also, leave in the comments below if you agreed with the score and what you would score Robb Stark ultimately. Leave in the comments below the categories and the subcategories you would give the scores to him so I can compare and see your personal opinions on whether we agree or disagree. Anything and everything. Learn, change and entertain.